Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, CesarRespino. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, CesarRespino, and today I have a special guest. Her name is Jennifer Hernandez, and let me introduce you to her, and then we'll get started. So Jennifer Hernandez is currently a top 1% mortgage loan originator in the country. Scotsman's Guide, top woman or originator, and 34 in the country for FHA Lending. An author and motivator speaker starting her first conference this year, from being homeless at 17 to a mother at 19, while working her way up from a switchboard operator to a finance manager. Jennifer had never let any obstacle stop her from achieving anything she wanted. Hey, Jennifer, how are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to definitely have this conversation with you, and I'm very fascinated by just the things that I just read. Being able to go from not having anything to being the top #1 mortgage loan originator in the country is huge. And so, before we dive into that, though, tell me a little bit about your background. What were you originally born in, and how was your upbringing?
So I was born in Oak Lawn, Illinois, and my upbringing, traditional life in the beginning. My parents got divorced when I was 4, and that's kind of when life took a turn. And then when I was 11 years old, my mom was forced with the decision to move out of state with her new husband, and me and my brother opted to stay in the state of Illinois to live with our father. So I think that was really the beginning of my story. Is kind of, I had like a sense of abandonment, which initially I thought that's what had me spiraling out of control within the next couple of years. By the time I was a sophomore in high school, I had straight Fs. My parents were having me put in adolescent facilities to try to save me from myself. Unfortunately, when at that point, after it's too late, like there's really no saving anyone from themselves. They have to want to save themselves. And I wasn't anywhere near ready to do so. I did graduate high school through an alternative program. The traditional high school sent me to an alternative school where I was able to graduate high school. But shortly after that, I did find myself homeless. I'm not sure where I was going to live from day to day, so a lot of time spent on the streets. During also my teenage years, the streets is really where I found my family. They accepted me for who I was, and it was really the special sauce that I needed. So I was completely drawn to it. And by the time I was 19, I did end up pregnant. I gave birth to my daughter, Destiny, at 20, and she was my reason to change everything. And she gave me a reason to live and to care about myself versus just not caring about anything, whether I live or die. So we moved out of the city. I moved to the suburbs, and I started working. First started as a waitress, and then a switchboard operator. And the car business was actually my first job when I got my first apartment at 18. And then I worked my way up by 25 to being a finance manager.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can definitely relate to or somehow identify themselves with what you mentioned. And that is that, parents getting divorced when you were just 4. And a lot of times people tend to seek that comfort or that family aspect, or more than anything, find what they're missing or lacking in the household for whatever reason, right? And a lot of times too, people tend to blame themselves for, was it my fault that my parents got divorced, or this happened in my life? And I know that between the ages of 0 and 7, whatever happens during that time period is what's gonna follow you pretty much through your life unless you start working on healing and or making changes for what happened during those years. How was it for you going through that experience? Is that part of the reason why you also found, I guess the family aspect on the streets, because you felt like, things were out of place, and not having that both your mom and dad on the same household? Did that make a huge impact for you?
It did. So I think really now that I'm older and I have done my healing,
Right.
and I'm still healing, so I'm still learning things in regards to myself. Like the story that I initially thought it was, the sense of abandonment, but it was that, along with the different parenting that my dad had. My dad is 100% Italian, very strong, very stubborn, swears a lot. It's like a normal thing. And I never thought it was anything other than that, that was normal to me. And, but, it's a little bit of like verbal abuse, and sometimes, if you don't know how, my dad didn't really know how to, he didn't really talk to us. He was young, he went to worked 12-hour days and was tired when he got home, provided dinner. He provided us everything, that we needed. But I think I just needed like love, and I just needed to be talked to, and needed like, need you to know like what's going on. You can't wait until your daughter's completely spiraled out of control and been like, now you're like, oh, now I want to pay attention. No, that doesn't work. Now it's too late, you see, because now it's my rules. So that's kind of the situation that happened. So it was more than just my mom leaving. It was my mom leaving, and then just me living with my dad used to be the weekend dad. So he was the fun, it didn't have to be stress. So
Right.
it was a different environment. And I really just wanted to feel loved. And so I, obviously being young and in that situation, I started looking for love in all the wrong places. And, the streets provided me what I was missing.
Yeah, and I can kind of relate to some of that in some aspects. Even myself growing up, never met my father. Don't even know his name to this point. And my mother. So I'm from Mexico. My mother decided to leave Mexico and leave me behind with my grandmother, and it's kind of like that sense of abandonment. And you don't see it when you're a kid. Sometimes the things that right or wrong, parents or the people that loved us, what they do, and then you start blaming yourself, or you start thinking like, was it something that I did, or now I'm missing this component, right? And it's not until your later years, when you start healing, as you mentioned, and start going through that process, that you see it from a different perspective, and you start understanding why things took place, and the reason that they took place has impacted the life that you have now, right? And so going through that experience for yourself, and then obviously finding that love, or that, the caring per se, on the streets, did you find yourself in difficult situations, or things that you say, this is not right, yet you were still part of that, or it was just more of just, I needed that comfort?
Oh no, I was in a lot of situations that I shouldn't have been in.
Yeah.
A lot of situations. I mean, some that could have ended me up in jail for the rest of my life or dead. So I was in the crossfire every day and didn't really care. I had no fear of anything, which was that's the scariest part, is when someone really has no fear. Like, I didn't care whether I lived or died. I didn't care how big you were. If you disrespected me, I just was going to be what I was going to be, and I didn't really care. So that's a dangerous place to be, not caring. So I'm glad that I made it out, and and I think that's why I named my daughter Destiny too, because I felt like my life was on a path of I'm going to end up dead or in jail, and then she came along, and so it was my reason, to change it all. So, but I'm so grateful for all of the things that I have been through, right? Because had one thing been different, I wouldn't be who I am today, and been able to impact the people that I'm going to be able to impact, and even that, like, I learned so much, and I was strong enough to break the cycles that my parents weren't, and that's what happens. Like, that's what people have to understand, is that it's okay that your parents didn't do that, or they, because had they done that, you wouldn't be who you are, right? But do you want that cycle to continue with your children, or are you going to be strong enough to stand up and say, okay, I'm going to heal. This is unacceptable, and it can no longer be accepted, and I kind of just had to express that to them, what was and was not going to be acceptable in our relationships going forward. So that way I could heal, and so I didn't continue that behavior, like have my children feel the way that I felt.
Yeah. And obviously, again, destiny was the reason why you kind of broke that cycle and said, enough is enough. I got to make a change. What would be your advice for those people that they don't have a destiny, right? Yet they should be able to start thinking about, how can I exit this? Yet they don't have the means or even the idea. What will be your advice to those people that might be in a similar situation or are going down their own path to an extent to where they can break away from that and break those cycles?
I guess it's really just kind of dig deep and see, like, what is it that you want in life, and knowing that you can have that. When I grew up, it was all about, like, you got to get good grades to go to college so that college can make you someone. That college wasn't for me, clearly. I didn't go to college. Lucky I graduated high school. But nothing in this world defines you other than you. Nothing. No one can stop you but you. No stigma that anybody puts on you. It's truly like you are in control of your life. The funny thing is I think Destiny was maybe 2 or 3 years old, and we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I had also, like, taken on custody of my stepson at that time. And I remember like saying, like, I want more. And, their father was like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I want a $500,000 house. I want an in-ground pool. I want to, have family vacations, with my family every year. And I did have an uncle who did those things. So I got to see that it was like a possibility, so I would advise you to get a mentor. Like, nobody told me, like, find a mentor, find somebody who went through similar things like you, and follow them and see what they did. And then, look at what people have and know that you can have anything that they have. It's truly up to you. So I remember when I was in that apartment, I was dreaming, like, not dreaming, I was just saying, like, I want more, I want a $500,000 house. I want the in-ground pool. I want vacations with the family. I want a summer home. And within like 3 years, I had all of that. All of it. And it wasn't until I was losing everything that I looked back and said, like, oh my God, I manifest that then. I said I was going to have all of these things. And within just a couple of years, every single thing that I said I was going to have, I had. So it's really, just find, nobody told me to find a mentor or to read books. I didn't read a book until, like, my mentor now is the first book I ever read. His name's Ryan Blair. And I was like 34 years old after having 4 kids, I finally read a book, and it does a lot for you. So that would be my advice, really.
Yeah. So obviously you're very successful. I want to know, how did you find yourself in a place where you're homeless and you didn't have, nothing to really, seek for, right? I mean, so how did you end up in that place, and how did you get out of that hole?
So my dad actually sold his condo and moved in with his girlfriend right after I graduated high school. And she threw me out the day I moved in. So I didn't even get to unpack. And then I just had to figure out, where I was going to stay from day to day. My mom didn't live in the state at the time. So I really had no idea what I was going to do. I was just like, kind of like a lost soul out there.
Yeah.
Wandering the streets, and then, begging somebody to let me sleep on their couch. And I have to say that it's a very, that's a very difficult situation to be in. And I was in it a couple other times throughout my life when I was in transition. And I'm not able to get a job. I'm not able to be stable during those situations. You can't, because you don't know where you're going to sleep from day to day. So all you're thinking about is, like, where am I going to lay my head today? Do I have a place, or, like, what am I going to do? Like, do these people really want me here? Am I, like, it's just a very unsettling feeling. And for me, I could never work during those feelings. Like, I couldn't do anything. I was, like, stuck. So my dad actually helped me get an apartment because he knew that I was not finding a place. And he actually moved out of his girlfriend's. And then my grandma, like, let me stay there one night and told the family I was selling drugs out of her house. So I'm like, I don't need this either. Like, I'm not dealing with this. So I'll stay on the streets, And then, so he helped me get an apartment and co-sign for my first apartment. Unfortunately, I wasn't ready for that, and I got kicked out within 3 months, and then had to be in the same situation. So, but then I had to learn, then I had to learn the hard way, and then I got my own apartment, and a couple months later, same thing. But then I ended up pregnant. So, it's a tough situation to be in, and you really just have to know that it's not your end situation. This isn't forever. It's temporary. It's one of those obstacles and one of those things that you just have to go through, probably so that I can talk about it, Yeah. So now that I am who I am, I believe that that's probably why I've been through so many different things.
Right. And the other thing that comes to mind is, in 3 years, you manifested something, and a lot of people don't believe in certain things or manifestation, or the words do matter, or the energy you're putting out into the universe. I definitely believe that that's huge. And obviously I believe you believe that too, based on the fact that you talked about it, you manifested that, and then in just 3 years or so, you got pretty much everything on your bucket list. What were the actions? Because obviously there's one thing to say things, and that's great. You got to put it out into the universe. Then you also have to take action now. What are some of the actions that you did or you took to be able to get all those things?
I didn't, I was told a lot throughout my life that I wasn't really going to have anything or be anyone. And I actually reached out to people, like when I thought I was going to be a finance manager in the car business, and they told me, you got to go to college, you got to do this. Everybody puts their own blockers and stigmas on you. And you guys have to know that when you're talking to other people, a lot of times people don't want you to be more successful than them. So they downplay like who you are, or maybe are not for you. Don't talk to anybody about what you want. Just know because unless they're have what you want or are where you want to be, you shouldn't allow their input to affect you at all. Because if they're not where you want to be or have what you want to have, why do you care what their advice is? You shouldn't, because a lot of people, believe it or not, they want to keep you where they are. They don't want to see you thrive. They don't want to see you be greater than where they are at. They are intimidated by people who have like outrageous dreams. Mine's not even done yet. Like, I'm just getting started, So for me, I just, when people told me I couldn't do something, I was like, oh, I'll show you. I had this like, I'll show you mentality. You're not going to tell me what I can't do. There's no can't in my vocabulary. So I literally thrived on that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to show you. And I would just put out all my effort into doing it. And I didn't let anything stop me. Like I was working in the car business, I think for like 5 or 6 years. And I'm like, guys, like, I'm pretty much doing the finance manager's job, but I'm getting paid $13 an hour. I'm like, they're making a couple $100,000 a year. I could sell. Put me on the floor. I do everything else, every other part of your job. But it's a male dominated industry, and it's whatever. So I put myself through a training course to learn about finance. And then I asked the general manager, I'm like, hey, will you let me back up finance for free? So I worked 9 to 5 during the day. At 5 o'clock at night, I went down in the office and I backed up finance from 5 to 9, getting paid nothing. And because I went in there and I sold and I kind of showed their numbers up a little bit, the general manager was like, he was opening up his own dealership, and he's like, I'm gonna bring her with. So he brought me with. Then I started selling aftermarket rust proofing and stuff. And then he allowed me an opportunity to start backing up finance, because he's seen that I had the ability to do that. So it's really about just knowing that that's what you want, and don't let anything stop you. No limitations, and just go after it and get it.
Yeah.
And then what happened was the car business, I'm a young, like 24-year-old woman. And of course they're not paying me what all the other top-notch big shot guys are getting paid. And I'm like, you know what? I need to be making 6 figures a year. And they're like, did you just give me an ultimatum? I'm like, yeah, kind of. Like I'm working 50 plus hours. My daughter's young. Like I'm away. Like I don't get any time with her. So what's the point of having money and no time? And then I'm not really even having the money, because you're not paying me what you're paying the men. So yeah, I think I should be making 6 figures. So I started interviewing, and they fired me. But it was and it was funny because I was devastated at the time, right? Everything that happens to us in life, like we're so devastated, we cry, we're like, we work so hard for that, but it's a blessing, right? Because that happened to me so that I could be fired, so that I could find the mortgage industry, so then I could thrive and walk into my greatness. And then within a couple months, I entered into the mortgage business, and in 8 months, I made over 6 figures. Like, so, so now that I have been through so many difficult obstacles in life, the advice that I'll tell you is that when the world is caving in on you and you feel like you're dying and everything is coming at you and you're like, why is this happening? Don't worry about why. Thank God that it's happening, because you're about to go to a level that you've never been to before. And it's just making sure that you're worthy. Like, they put us through, like, we are put through the most difficult things so that we can come out on top and really have that, that extra, and then every single time I'm taken to another level that I yet have never been to before. So
yeah, and it reminds me of a couple of points. Number one, it reminds me of what Les Brown said, and he said, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And I really enjoy that, and I can see that how that relates to you, because obviously you were doing the hard things. Again, working the 9 to 5, long hours, then going in volunteering the time, and then your daughter being away from you, and like you were doing the hard things so that you can have a easy life down the line. The second thing that comes to mind, based on what you're saying, is that even if you're going through a challenging time and things seem to not be aligning with you, more than anything, have faith and be certain and believe that things are going to get better, right? Because sometimes people do get stuck on that space, and then they said, this is not going to get better, and they turn to drugs, or they, worst case scenario, commit suicide or do things that does not serve them, because again, they don't believe they're going to be able to come out of that. Just do believe that, even though you're going through a very hardship situation, you're losing everything, and you're homeless, you have no money, that things are going to get better. Have that faith and be certain and understand that things can get better for you. And so I can see that. And then, beyond that, just, you said something about you found something that you kind of love or you stepped into what is your purpose, right? And I think that's part of the one thing that we, as people, it's hard for us to find. It's not easy for us to find. What is that purpose? Why are we here, in this world? What is our purpose in life, right? And or what are we passionate about doing in life? Any tips on how we might be able to find that? And see how we know that, hey, I like to do mortgage versus selling cars, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah. So for me, it's funny because I didn't know either. But when I got in the mortgage industry, it was like second nature to me, and I didn't understand why. And then when I opened my first branch, and back in like 07, 08, I opened up a branch, and I was like, oh, it should be so easy for me to train people to be like me. I know what it is. So it should be very easy for me to train them to be like me. And what I found is that it was very difficult, that I did have a special, unique skill that a lot of people don't have. So that's when I realized, like, what is it? I sat back and I tried to evaluate myself and be like, what is it that makes me so great at this? And what I realized, and I didn't realize it until I was losing everything. I lost everything that I had in 2010. And when I was losing it is when I started reflecting on my life, and I realized that in the mortgage industry, I was helping people. And in my personal life, I helped everybody that I knew in one way or another. Like, I impacted people's lives in any way I possibly could. So for me, that was in alignment with who I am, which is to help others in some way, whether it be, financially, with homes, with their credit, by inspiring them. Like, I'm meant to help others. So that's when I really realized that that's what it was. And now I know that, like, the more that I do, the more impact I'm going to make, because now I'm donating to causes, and I want to create like an alternative to the streets, because there's reasons why we turn there, and it's good people who turn there. And yes, some of us don't make it out, but if there was something similar to it, maybe people would turn to something else. It's just, there's not really anything. And even like my niece, in the last few years, one of my nieces, she was homeless for a minute, and she tried to find a place to stay. Do you know how difficult that is? It's literally so difficult, and it shouldn't be that hard. It should be known where to go if you're homeless, or people should be able to advise you. And it's like, you're kind of like stuck in, there's nothing. And, kids don't ask to be put in the situations they are. And I feel like in this world today, we need to we need to do better for our children, and because that's why, things are the way they are. So if we can just try to be a little bit better, or try to do a little bit more and heal ourselves, then we can change the world. So
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so this year first conference, right? That you did it already, you're gonna do it?
no, it's in September. September
Okay.
16th is my very first one.
Nice, nice. So how did you land at that? I mean, obviously motivational speaker, author, I want to tap into those things too. How did you land it in that conference? What are you talking about? What are you speaking about?
I'm just it's called my do-over, and I really just want to share my story. I want to share my story to inspire others to know that, like, you can be anything you want to be. Literally in 2010, when I lost everything, and I also got divorced. I was a single mother raising 4 kids on my own, living payday. Just 4.5 years ago, I was living payday loan to keep the lights on and keep food in my kids' mouth. 4 years ago, now I live in a state of abundance. I have hundreds of thousands in investments. My mentor, the first investor in his company. My book is almost done. I'm having my first conference. I'm the top 1% in loan origination in the country. I'm number 34 in the country for FHA Lending. So it's literally, and what happened for me, because I was digging myself deep. I was crying, why me? Why me? Like, I don't deserve this. Like, why do I have to go through all of these different things? And then one day something snapped in me, and I'm like, this is not me. And this is not going to be my story. And I am going to remain positive and know that greatness is coming from me. And this is not where my story ends. And literally, I didn't care. I would be like $3,000 negative in the bank, and there would be no stress. You would not know that. I was like, it's going to be fine. And then magically a check would appear in the mail, and I don't even know how it got there. But I was like, see, and then things like that just kept happening. The vision that I have of creating like an alternative to the streets, I wrote it down. And then one by one, like, all these nonprofits started coming to me, and I started working with different ones. And I'm like, it just happened. Because I stayed positive and I stopped crying about why me, and said, this is not going to be me. The me is coming. And so now I just really want to be able to do that on a platform and impact the world, and eventually, turn my book into a motion picture so that we can do so.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the thing that I take away from that, which I think is a golden nugget, is stop blaming yourself or saying why me. It's really changing that frame, seeing things from a different perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, even just said it, right? Even though you're negative in the bank, you didn't worry so much, more so you had that faith, things are going to be better, like having that certainty and having that faith that somehow things are going to turn out to be good. We're focusing on the positive versus the negative, right? And it is true. I do believe that the things that you focus upon will expand, right? So whatever you have in your head, and there's an African proverb that I really enjoy, and it says, when there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm, right? So it's not about the external aspects. It's really what's going on in your head, right?
Yeah.
And again, you can be breaking down. You might not have the money in the bank. That's an external aspect. It's what you have in your head that's going to help you get through whatever you're going through, right? So yeah, I definitely see that. What's the title of your book?
No one can stop me but me.
No one can stop you but me. Awesome. When did you write that book?
I started it in 2010 when I was losing everything. So it's just coming to life now, 12 years later. So don't give up, guys. Just stay the course. It's finally happening. So that was 12 years ago. But, and something that you said that I want to just touch on is that it is the most difficult thing for us to do, is to stay out of our own way. We are our own worst enemy. And I mean, if I would have continued to cry, why me, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm so glad for that break, that whatever broke in me. And now when the world is coming in on me, now I know, like, it's okay. Like, this is happening so that I can heal another piece that I didn't know was broken, so that I can learn, and so that I can evolve to another level that I have yet to be to. So now I'm like so excited for it. So even though I'm crying, I'm like, it's okay. What are you learning from this? And I'm evaluating like the lessons of whatever I'm going through. And I'm like, it's not going to stop me. I'm never going to be crying why me again. Now I say thank you. Thank you so much for this lesson. And I will learn from it.
Yeah. And I can imagine even going through those challenging times, there was probably times where you felt lonely. You felt like there was nobody there to help you or support you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get through that? How do you go and come out of that? Because again, oftentimes, I get people sending me messages and they feel like, hey, I feel alone. I feel like I have nobody. Even if they have kids, they're single moms or dads, and they're like, I'm still stuck. I feel like there's nobody here to support me and help me. And I think that's a very, bad feeling or nasty feeling. How do you get out of that to continue to move forward? Where do you find that courage?
Yeah, well, it's funny because in my story, I actually had to walk away from everybody. I had to cut off everyone, my mom, my dad, my sister, my friends, every single person who wasn't like a positive thing in my life, I could not have conversation with because I was trying to save myself from myself. And if you're trying to save yourself from yourself, there can't be anyone who brings you anything but positive light. Anyone who brings you any type of not positive light must be cut off right there because it will do nothing but keep you where you're at. And so I had to cut everyone off, and gratefully everyone is back in my life now, but it's, it's a better relationship and with more understanding as to, what I can and cannot allow. So it's hard to do, but I think too, I've heard this so many times from so many great people, so many inspirational people, is their circles are very small. And the more successful you become, the smaller your circle is going to be. And just understand that that's okay. And the people who are meant to be in your life will be in your life. So although it's lonely, you know what I did? I found a multi-level marketing company. It was Visalis, and Ryan Blair is my mentor, and it was his company. So I went to all their conferences and I got all of their motivational stuff. And I was so broke and had no money to get there, but I took out a loan to get there because I knew I needed to hear what their top salespeople were selling. I needed to hear their motivational stories because I needed that. So you just have to put yourself in somewhere, listen on YouTube to all of the motivational people to help get you to where you're going. That would be my suggestion, because trust me, I was like that. I was alone. I had no one at all. And it was hard. It was really hard. But it was worth it. So.
Yeah. And it reminds me again of Les Brown. He said, always strive to be on top because the bottom is overcrowded, right? Or, it's only on the top because the bottom's overcrowded. And it's true, right? There's so much, you can find very few eagles on top, and you can find a lot of pigeons on the bottom, right? And so, definitely, I think that, again, just being able to find that those people, kind of like the average five, right? That you hear, I think it was Jim Rohn that talked about that, the average five. And I like to take it a step further. And I said, the average five should be three groups of people. Number one are people that you look up to, like a mentor, someone that's going to help you get to where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And they're helping you through that journey. The second group of people, I see them as more people that are on the same playing field or level as you are. They're actually not competing with you. They're edifying you. They're helping you out. They're doing joint ventures. They truly want to see you succeed. You get a lot of people that they're just competing. This is like people that actually want to be with you in that journey. And the last one, which I think is so critical, is not the opportunity for you to look down on people that want to become you. And it gives you the opportunity to reach down and bring them up to your level. So that's service. Right. And for me, that's like the average five. When you can find that group of people, I believe that you're definitely unstoppable in many different aspects, because you're always constantly being in that cycle, right? You're never going to be on top. You're never going to be on the bottom. You're never going to be in the middle. It's just that cycle where you can actually have that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so is there a new book coming up after this book? Anything that you plan to do, or?
No, I don't have another book on the horizon. I do have other stories. I want to find other stories out there that are similar to mine and help them come to life. So that is the goal. And then there is some spin-off stories from mine that I want to see. I want to see come to life. So I've been through a lot, and I really just want to share the stories to impact not only, not only the people that are in my situation, but also the parents, to see if maybe hearing my story, you can say like, wow, I can see why that was that way, and maybe help them heal,
Yeah, right. In terms of mortgage, do you do mortgage loans all over the U.S. or specifically there's a market?
Yeah, I'm licensed in about 15 states, but I can get licensed anywhere.
Okay.
So that's the goal, is to go across the United States now. So, but now that I have focused on Illinois enough, I am branching out to Atlanta, California, Florida, Arizona, so Texas.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you? Where can they get your book? How they can learn about your conference, all that good stuff.
So I am Jen Hernandez on Instagram. It's, let me tell you exactly how it's spelled. I am Jen Hernandez. You can also find me on Facebook at Jennifer Braglia Hernandez. And everything will be shared on social media. So you can find me right through there. And then loandepot.com, Jennifer Hernandez. If you have the reason why I'm able to help so many people, all of my clients, whether you're a 400 or an 800 credit score, you're treated the same. And we provide everybody with a path to home ownership. So do not let someone deny you without getting a second opinion from me. FHA Lending is my specialty. And once we run your credit, we can advise you what needs to happen from there to make sure that you can get in your home. So, awesome. And I am with Loan Depot in Bolingbrook.
Okay, good. And where can people pick up your book?
It's not for sale yet, but okay. On my social media, if you can follow me on social media, once again, and let me tell you the spelling of it. It's I am JENN Hernandez on Instagram.
Okay, awesome. I got to get a copy of that autograph book for sure,
For sure, as soon as it's available.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And, you've given us a lot of great things. And, I want to ask you one last question. For the people that are listening to us and they're watching the show, if they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing that you can say to them so they can start overcoming that challenge?
Just know that is not your end space. And look inside and see what it is that you want in life. And as long as you can see it, it can start coming about. But you have to keep all of the negative talk out of. You cannot speak negatively in any aspect. You have to speak positive. You have to speak life into yourself. So the key thing that I did is I put a rubber band on my wrist, and every single negative thought that I had, I snapped myself. And eventually your brain, after a week or 2 weeks of having that rubber band on your wrist, your brain will automatically snap that thought out of your head the minute it hits, because you have trained yourself to no longer have negative thoughts. You must keep the negative thoughts out of the head. That is the most important thing you can do.
I love that, and that's actually a good way to pay attention to the things that you're doing or saying. So yeah, do you have any daily habits that you do?
Daily, I pray every day and be grateful for everything that I have. Meditation and breath work is a must. I am not daily user of it, but I need to be a daily user of it. Also working out, giving yourself something positive to release, that is very important. So those are the key components to really keeping yourself in a better light.
No, I love it. Wow, Jennifer, I definitely enjoyed this conversation with you, and definitely you are impacting many different lives with your message, and you have a very unique and interesting story. So thank you for sharing that. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, that's it. Just do not dig yourself deep, guys. When you're in that hole, just stop the digging. Stop the digging and start breathing life into yourself, and you can have and do anything you want in life. No one can stop you but you.
I love that. Well, Jennifer, thank you again for being here on the show. Really appreciate it. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please go ahead and follow Jennifer and share this message, because somebody definitely needs to hear this message. I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm CesarRespino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.